Welcome back to the third episode and my conclusion to the AI conversation with Brett Monroy. In the first episode, we talk about how generative AI is going to change certain creative discipline and enhance many other. In the second episode, I asked Bert the question, is generative AI going to change what you do for your photorealistic genre of painting? To which his answer was extremely fascinating. I'll leave links to the first two episodes in the description. I highly recommend that you check them out before you continue with this one. For this episode, we're going to have a conversation about the future of generative AI in the creative world, where things are going to go, and how things may scale back a little bit. So it's going to be very interesting to have this discussion to see what we talk about. And we're also going to open this discussion to AI at large a little bit as well, which is going to be really fascinating. So I hope that you enjoyed this last discussion of AI with us. Let's find out together. This is Artist Right. Before we start, subscribe if you're new and hit on the bell icon so you'll be notified every time I upload cool new videos like this. Hopefully by the time we get to that point, most of these creative that has more of the traditional discipline and training are still going to be around, unlike one of those dystopian movies where it's like we have the last artist here who knows how to work with all these in a traditional way, and he's the only remaining person that know all these crafts. Because I mean, this is also very something that you see in other aspects of life too, just not quite as drastic. For example, there's a lot of Japanese, like I'll use Japan as an example. There's a lot of Japanese traditional craft that there's maybe one family that's doing it or one person that's still doing it, but majority have moved over to large machines, to different tools that gets the job done easier. But there are still those craft, but having someone who maintain and keeping that, I think is going to also be maybe another, creative discipline in the future, is just maintaining those traditional craft, understanding where we come from. Because I mean, most of the tools in Photoshop, I mean, I teach my students and I talk to them about dodge and burn, and I'm just wondering, like, where does that term come from? They, because they didn't come from a darkroom experience. It means nothing to them. But once you tell them that, they start to get an idea. And having those those connections are important, because everything that's been happening in the creative world is not just created or just made. They're usually based on something in real life. Yeah. For example, before we started this clip, we were talking about the ruler, the Pica ruler, and how they use those in desktop publishing. I mean, I just heard the term pica. I seen a term in InDesign, but honestly, I don't know what that means, because it's not something that I do on a daily basis. I mostly deal with pixels and inches and everything in photographic print. So it was just really good to see. And I think that's going to be like another thing too, that if you know the traditional process, is going to help you a lot as a creative. And that's really a good thought on that you have.
Yeah, there's a lot of basic things. Like I've seen a lot of art classes that are teaching you Photoshop and here's filters and all that, but they never discuss things like perspective. Yeah. A very basic thing, which is crucial for my stuff, is that I start off by establishing a horizon line and a vanishing point, and start working my vanishing line so everything's in proper perspective, so that it's going to look like a real thing. These things aren't really taught anymore. Unless you go to an actual art school to learn those basics, not necessarily the computer, but the basics of something like perspective, shading, all these kind of things that are crucial to make something look good. So a lot of these old crafts are still crucial. They might be, in fact, there's perspective tools in Photoshop now, right? So they've made it easier, but these are still things you have to understand. Why are they there? What is their purpose? So just because they made it a push button doesn't mean that, it's going to be perfect. So there are things that you have to tweak yourself just based on knowledge of the way things work.
And I think there's a lot of things that's going to be missing as well AI is great for democratizing creation in a way, but I think also that many of the prompts we put in, for someone like me, I might not think about the perspective or, some of the background discipline that you mentioned quite as much. And from your perspective, like when you have an expert look at it, they'll tell you right away, like, well, that's wrong, or that perspective's not correct, or you didn't do the atmospheric blending right, those kind of things. I think those are going to be another thing too that pops out. Like, it's like what you said, we're going to see a progression of this where everyone's creating, but we're going to see work that may not be so good, and then afterwards it's going to settle down a little bit.
Yeah. In time, let's go back to this. Let's go back to a professional, because we need it to be right.
Yeah, that's usually the case. It's similar to, like, I would say, just the phone that we have with us. I mean, we're constantly photographing with it, but at some point in time, when there are important things happening in your life, you still want a photographer with a nice camera, because it does
proper lighting and all that good stuff. Yeah,
exactly, because it still does make a difference.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts you have on AI, Bert, or?
On AI, well, in so many other things, AI is just taking over. And
I know.
So there's a lot of good things. Of course, there's the fear that everybody's been saying that it eventually. I mean, you look at movies like The Terminator. You know,
Yeah.
I can see it where AI could someday become a danger. It says, well, these creatures are ruining the planet. They're
Right.
using up and they're killing all the other species. We don't need them anymore. You know, they'll control the manufacturing. They'll create their robots, their Terminators, and then they'll wipe us out because we're a virus on the planet. So there are those science fiction theories, but they're starting to become reality. And there are fears like that. Recently, Elon Musk and Wozniak, they were all talking about slowing it down. So there are the downsides. There's downsides to most things. And the fact that we're letting everything be taken care of by something else, it does have some downsides because it might be smart, but it might not take into account little fine details like, we do need to breathe, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there are dangers that could happen down the road. So it's affecting a lot of different fields now, like, you know, it's going to find cures for diseases. They're using it for that purpose. So things have their advantage. Atomic power had its advantage, but look what it's done. It's made us fearful of atomic wars, you know, and so on, nuclear wars. So there's always a downside to things, and unfortunately, it's because humans are either good or bad. You know, we have the potential for both, and with all technology, it has its good, but it has its bad. So that's what you have to worry about, and hopefully that we'll grow and learn and learn to live together and be one species rather than a bunch of different countries fighting each other and trying to outdo each other. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate your insight on that because I've been thinking a lot about that. I'm sure you have been hearing a lot about that too. Yes. In fact, you were just at a conference, right?
Yeah, Creative Pro, and there was a lot of questions. There were quite a few sessions on AI. Yeah, because it's inevitable. It's in your face. You go to YouTube and there's a lot of videos on AI and this and that and everything else. So yeah, it's become a very into the public attention, the AI, and everybody knows AI. I still prefer HI, human intelligence. I prefer that one. It's not much of it out there, but I still prefer that one. But AI is a scary thing, and everybody's aware of it, and we just have to find regulations and see how to deal with it.
Absolutely. And as a creative, one of the things you can do is just learn about AI and then teach AI to people that don't know how to use AI yet. That's another, I would say, industry in the creation world that's going to crop up as well. So you may not have your design job, but now you have a job teaching other people how to utilize a tool in AI.
Yeah.
I just thought that it was interesting that you brought that out. But awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Bert, for your time. Greatly appreciate you being here.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
Someday you might do an interview with the computer. Sit there and talk to the computer. Well, what do you think about this? That could happen.
There you go. Generative AI is going to affect all of us creative going forward. Whether we choose to use that tool or not, we are now surrounded by generative AI. And being able to utilize that tool to enhance what we do even further is going to be crucial. Now, for any of those new creatives out there, this is something that Bert also mentioned in this last episode as well. Understanding the context of a tool, understanding the traditional method, even though you may not be working in those traditional method anymore, it's just going to enhance your creative skill even further. And at the end of the day, when you combine that with generative AI, now you have context, why you're doing something, why you are enhancing something, and how you can make that better. At the end of the day, you are going to be a much better creative because of those contexts. So learn those contexts as much as possible. Anyway, this has been an extremely fun journey for me. I really enjoy visiting Bert in the studio, and I hope that you guys all enjoy my visit with him as well, sharing this experience with you. If you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them below. Remember that in the description, there'll also be a link to Bert's website and also his YouTube channel with many of his tutorials as well. Bert is really an awesome instructor. I definitely highly recommend you check it out. Give this video a like, subscribe, and hit on the bell to renew, and in Art We Trust.